Reiji Mukadori buys a copy of Infinite Dendrogram, the world's first full-dive VR MMORPG. Upon entering the game, he is greeted by Cheshire, one of the artificial intelligences in charge of overseeing the game, who tells Reiji that he must choose an online pseudonym. Reiji chooses the name Ray Starling. Upon arriving in the Kingdom of Altar, Ray meets Liliana Grundria, an NPC who asks for his help in finding her sister Miliane. Shu, Ray's brother, volunteers to help with the mission. Before we continue with the video, don't forget to hit that like button, share the video with your friends, and subscribe to the channel to help us keep bringing more summaries like this one. Now, let's get to the video. But after finding Miliane in an abandoned orchard, they are attacked by demi-drag worms. With Shu dragged underground and Liliana fighting elsewhere, only Ray remains to safely escort Miliane. Fortunately, Ray awakens his embryo, Nemesis, which manifests as a sword and destroys the last demi-drag worm, completing the mission. While Ray, Nemesis, and Shu celebrate the completion of Ray's first mission, Shu explains some of Altar's history to Ray and helps him become a paladin. Later, Ray and Nemesis try to level up, but they are ambushed by a player assassin. Despite efforts to escape, Ray is killed and must wait 24 hours before logging in again to Infinite Dendrogram. To become stronger, Ray and Nemesis go to the Tomb Labyrinth in the Royal Cemetery, where they face zombies and encounter Figaro, one of the top-ranked players in Altar, who recommends that Ray visit Gideon, a city where players can duel without penalties for dying. While Figaro bids farewell, Ray and Nemesis continue their fight in the labyrinth, but Nemesis is terrified by the zombies, and Ray consoles her by polishing his blade. Ray, Nemesis, Rook, and Babylon discover that the bands of player assassins that were pursuing them across Altar have been eliminated. Marie Adler, a journalist working for the Dendrogram Information Network, confirms the story and shows the group a video depicting 3 of Altar's best players, including Figaro, defeating the player assassins. Marie also confirms that the player assassin who was pursuing the North, responsible for killing Ray, escaped and is still at large, giving Ray and Nemesis the opportunity for revenge. Later, while Ray and Nemesis observe a destroyed forest, they encounter Cheshire, who was performing maintenance in the area, and he informs Ray that maid-type embryos like Nemesis share the same functionality as administration AIs. With the player assassins defeated, the roads through Altar are now open, and Ray and his allies accept a mission to transport goods to Gideon, with Marie offering to accompany them. However, unbeknownst to Ray and his allies, a giant ogre named Gardranda is lurking on the road to Gideon. As Ray's groups embark on their journey to Gideon, they encounter a group of goblins attacking a caravan of travelers. Ray and his allies defeat the goblins until they are ambushed by Gardranda, who releases a poisonous gas to weaken Ray. Marie gives Ray an elixir to temporarily protect him from the effects of the poison, while Rook and Babylon keep Gardranda distracted. As the battle progresses, Nemesis evolves into her second form and gains the ability Like a Flag, flying upside down, which reverses any conditions affecting Ray. Despite this, Nemesis's offensive abilities are severely reduced, and Ray only defeats Gardranda when a bullet fired by an unidentified player weakens her at the last possible second. With the boss defeated and the group arriving in Gideon, the mission ends, and Ray is selected as the MVP. Ray also obtains 2 magical bracelets as new weapons, but he injures himself testing them until a stranger dressed in a penguin costume, self-proclaimed Dr. Flamingo, gives Ray a potion that heals him but also gives him animal ears. Flamingo flees, but not before telling Ray that he must return to normal in 10 hours. Ray and Nemesis are confused about how Flamingo knows Ray, even though Ray never gave him his name. In the end, we see what appears to be a player sitting in a dark room looking at monitor screens, observing various players and commenting on Ray. Ray and Nemesis visit an item shop in Gideon, where Ray wins a special horse from a gacha game machine. Unfortunately, Ray cannot ride it without first obtaining a special amulet. Ray tries to earn money to buy the amulet until he meets a fellow named Hugo and his friend Psycho. Together, they receive a mission from a woman asking them to save her brother from a gang that kidnaps children. Upon accepting the mission, Hugo reveals his weapon, a giant robot named Magengear, which he uses to take Ray to the gang's fortress. Before that, Hugo informs Ray that Maiden-type embryo masters, like Ray, don't consider Infinite Dendrogram a game, but as real as life. While Hugo and Psycho attack the defenders of the fortress head-on, Ray and Nemesis infiltrate the fortress and discover that several kidnapped children have been killed and turned into undead monsters, forcing Ray to mercy kill them. Hugo is attacked by a giant boss guarding the fortress, leading him to reveal Psycho, whose real name is Cocytus, as his embryo, merging her with his Magengear. Hugo Hugo destroys the boss while Ray reaches the deepest dungeon of the fortress and finds a child as the sole survivor. However, when trying to save him, the child awakens and attacks Ray. Ray survives the surprise attack thanks to Nemesis's halberd form and confronts the mentor behind the kidnappings, a lich attempting to create a powerful magical artifact called the Crystal of Resentment. The lich tries to flee but is stopped by Hugo, and Ray kills him. As Ray and his allies venture deep into the castle to rescue the remaining children, the bandits working for the lich try to steal their belongings, including the crystal. Unfortunately, the crystal reacts to the lich's death, kills the bandits, and fuses with their bodies, creating a new boss. Hugo takes the children to a safe location, while Ray faces the boss alone. Nemesis discovers that the boss is controlled by the lingering resentments of the people comprising it, and she gains extra attack power whenever the lich's resentment controls it. Unfortunately, Ray gets injured in battle, and Nemesis takes him to a safe location before going to confront the boss alone. Ray has a dream about a mysterious girl observing the moment when Shu saved him, along with a girl, from being hit by a truck but injuring his foot in the process. Ray blamed himself for the injury, but Shu told him to believe in himself and never lose faith in his choices. This motivates Ray to return to the fight, but not before the girl reveals herself as the last remnant of Gardranda's mind, gaining consciousness after Ray killed its original form. Ray and Nemesis destroy the boss and acquire a pair of greaves as a reward. Later that night, Hugo and Cocytus encounter Flamingo, who takes off his penguin costume and discusses his plan to end the war between Altar and Dryfe. With all their main missions completed, Ray and Nemesis meet Marie, Rook, and Babylon for breakfast. Marie invites them to a fighting tournament taking place in Gideon. Later, Shu tells Ray and Nemesis that he's friends with Figaro, who will compete in the tournament. Ray talks to Hugo to share the reward from the previous mission, and Hugo advises Ray to head west. As the tournament begins, Franklin contacts Dryfe's army general and reveals his plan to use the tournament in Dryfe's favor. Shu gifts Ray with a telepathy bracelet that can be used for long-distance communication. Shu also warns Figaro that he'll face tough opponents in the tournament, but Figaro is determined to win. Ray is about to bet on Figaro for the next tournament match, but Nemesis stops him, thinking he'll waste their money again. They encounter Xunyu, who is carrying an unconscious girl. Ray thinks Xunyu is about to harm the girl and tries to fight Xunyu, who proves to be too fast for him. Fortunately, Shu intervenes and resolves the situation, and the unconscious girl turns out to be an ambassador from the Huanghe Empire, with Xunyu as her bodyguard. Ray and Shu reunite with the rest of the group as the match begins, with Figaro and Xunyu about to fight. Xunyu manages to land several hits on Figaro, cutting even one of his lungs, but as Shu explains, Figaro has a special embryo that makes him more powerful the longer he stays in a fight. Just when it seems Xunyu has dealt a fatal blow to Figaro's heart, Shu reveals that Figaro's embryo is inside his body and has the shape of a heart, protecting him from the attack. Figaro wins the match, but Flamingo interrupts and reveals himself as Franklin, a scientist working for the Dryfe Empire. He also reveals that he has kidnapped Elizabeth, the second princess of Altar, and holds her hostage. Marie, having met Elizabeth just before the start of the tournament in Gideon, is determined to save her from Franklin, who reveals he has surrounded the arena with a barrier. He warns that if players try to break it, the monsters under Franklin's control will destroy Gideon. While Marie sets out to save Elizabeth on her own, Ray discovers that lower-level players like him can safely cross the barrier, as it was designed only to restrain high-level players who could participate in tournament matches. Ray, Rook, and other lower-level players face off against Dryfe-affiliated players. Franklin tells Elizabeth that his plan is to eliminate any player affiliated with Altar, an action that will leave Altar vulnerable in an impending war against Dryfe. Marie briefly saves Elizabeth and deals lethal damage to Franklin, but he transfers all the damage he suffered to his monsters and survives. Upon recapturing Elizabeth, he deduces that Marie managed to kill a high-level player using only a lower-level embryo and orders his henchman Veldorbel to eliminate Marie. Meanwhile, a group of lower-level players tries to free the west gate of Gideon, but Hugo kills them. Marie, Hugo, and Veldorbel recall the experiences that led them to play Infinite Dendrogram in the first place. Veldorbel uses his ability to manipulate sound in an attempt to kill Marie, but she kills him by revealing her embryo, Arc-en-Ciel. Meanwhile, Franklin takes the unconscious Elizabeth out of Gideon and instructs Hugo to prevent everyone except Ray from leaving the city. Upon leaving the city, Franklin is attacked by the Royal Guard, led by Liliana, but he summons a monster to decimate them. Ray and Rook reach Hugo, who agrees to allow Ray to face Franklin, but not before Ray and Hugo exchange attacks only once. While Rook stays behind and fights against Hugo, Ray reaches the outskirts of the city and prepares to confront Franklin. As the battle between Rook and Hugo continues, Hugo uses an ability that freezes parts of Rook's body over time. Thanks to his deductive skills, however, Rook manages to understand how Hugo's ability works and merges with Babylon to fight in a balanced manner against Hugo's Magan gear. The power surge allows Rook to pierce Hugo's cockpit and incapacitate him with his enchanting magic. Meanwhile, Franklin informs Ray that the potion he gave him earlier actually provided Franklin with information about his status, level, and weapons. He used this information to create a monster with the express goal of killing Ray. He also reveals that he sent Liliana's sister, Milian, to the monster-infested orchard in another attempt to weaken Altar. Ray instructs Liliana and Sir Lindos of the Royal Guard to save their injured comrades, while he directly attacks the monster. Using his latest weapons, Ray manages to expose the monster's innards and launches a magical attack that completely disintegrates it. Although Ray succeeds in destroying Franklin's monster, he suffers severe injuries and faints. Liliana casts a healing spell that prevents Ray from dying, but she cannot heal his left arm. Franklin reveals that the monster destroyed by Ray was actually the weakest monster he created for the invasion. He uses a detonator to activate a series of bombs planted throughout Altar. However, the bombs fail to detonate, and Franklin realizes that Marie disarmed them. Rook captures Hugo and makes him realize that Franklin never intended to end the war between Altar and Dryfe with minimal casualties. Franklin summons his embryo, Pandemonium, and sends an army of suicidal monsters to attack Gideon. Ray awakens and faces Franklin's monster to give his allies enough time to prepare a counterattack. With the help of Rook, Marie, and a group of players, Ray manages to hold the defensive line. Franklin realizes that with so many players aiding Ray, Hugo must have betrayed him. Shu enters the battlefield, revealing himself as the King of Destruction, the player with the highest number of kills throughout Altar. He summons his embryo, a warship that devastates a significant part of Franklin's army. Franklin realizes he has lost the battle, so he activates his final weapon. Franklin activates his final weapon, a massive underground creature that will destroy Gideon's Colosseum. However, Fatum, a foreign player who had infiltrated the Colosseum, uses magic to move the tectonic plates around the creature, crushing it to death. Ray manages to reach Pandemonium and attempts to confront Franklin, but Hugo intervenes to protect Franklin, revealing that Franklin is Hugo's older sister. Ray sacrifices both arms to defeat both Hugo and Franklin, while Shu destroys Pandemonium and Marie rescues Elizabeth. With the battle concluded, Liliana heals Ray, but she cannot save his left arm, leaving Ray with only his right arm to continue playing the game. Following this, Franklin removes Hugo from the Triangle of Wisdom, both in an attempt to protect him and to remove any moral restraint in his goal to defeat Ray. Ray also has a rematch with Marie, having already discovered that she was the one who killed him in the second episode. Later, Ray disconnects from the game and continues his university studies in the real world, thus concluding the first season of the anime Infinite Dendrogram. That was today's content. We hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to share the video, leave your like, and stay tuned for the next video. Take care.